Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and today we are looking at April Wine's 1977 album, Forever for Now. This panel discussion and review includes Tim Derling from Tim's Vinyl Confessions, John Clauser from My Music Corner, Nick Esquire from the Contrarians, and Dave Lubin. So get ready after this. Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and I want to welcome John Clauser, Nick Esquire, Tim Derling, and Dave Lubin here tonight. Tonight, we're going to take a look at the sixth studio album from April Wine, Forever Now. This record was released in 1977, and this album's a lot different than what came before because this record actually was a Miles Goodwin solo album that the record store kind of got involved with and decided, you know, you guys are kind of on a streak right now. Let's make this into an April Wine album. So technically, it really sounds like a Miles Goodwin album. I mean, you've got country, you've got Latin, you've got Caribbean, blues, easy listening, and rock genres on here. It's kind of all over the place. It peaked number 19 on the Canadian charts in March before dropping back down. But the funny thing is, there was a single on the record called You Won't Dance With Me that became a surprise hit, selling more copies than any April Wine single, and it started the album back up on the charts. My theory is, you know, don't forget Happy Days is on the TV then. Maybe that had something to do with that whole 1950s thing. I don't know. Both the single and the album were certified platinum in Canada. All Music gave it 2 stars. I think that's a bit harsh, but let's turn it over to our panel and see what the panel has to say. And like always, we always start out with my friend Tim Derling. Tim, take it away.
Thanks, Grant. Forever for Now. Doing these panels, a lot of people might be going back on their own, and I hope they are, and listening to some of these. And as you're going through, this album might be a bit of a speed bump because you've got Electric Jewels, Stand Back, The Whole World's Going Crazy. It's pretty rocket stuff, and they already know that First Glance, Harder, Faster, Nature of the Beast is to come. You come across this album, it's like sudden stop.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, if you grew up in the 70s in the States, unless you lived on the border or knew someone that lived up here in Canada, this album, along with Electric Jewels and the first album, never came out in the States. Nowadays, that's not such a big deal with the advent of, online. But this album only came out on Aquarius Records in Canada. It didn't come out on London or Big Tree or any of the labels that April Wine would record for internationally. And yeah, it was originally meant to be a Miles Goodwin solo album. He was actually going to call it Goody Two Shoes, which, as I mentioned on our show on The Whole World's Going Crazy, is the name of an as yet unreleased B-side that was only on the B-side of Like a Lover, Like a Song. It's never been on the CD. April Wine's a band that needs their catalog properly digitized. There are B-sides floating around that have never been on digital form, and there are alternate mixes of songs, including the original 6.5-minute version of Like a Lover, Like a Song. And there is a little bit of that going on here, and I'll get to that. So track by track, Forever for Now. I really like this song. I think this is one of the songs on the album I could hear being treated with a more of a hard rock approach. There's not really any hard rock on here because Miles's influences are all over the place, from country to blues to probably old time rock and roll. The second track, Child's Garden, I really, really like this song. This song and Marjorie are the two songs that were plucked from London Records to go on the American version of The Whole World's Going Crazy. So they did get those two songs. This is probably my favorite song on the album, Child's Garden. It's kind of like Wings of Love, and it's kind of an epic ballad. It's a little bit different in tone, but lyrically, it's Miles apologizing to his father, who raised he and his siblings, as a on his own, because their mother died at think Miles was quite young when their mother passed away, and he wasn't he was a bad acting kid. So this is his way of saying sorry. Love and Use, total like old Floyd Kramer piano country ballad, totally, and it's well done. Miles's vocals are excellent on here. I don't know how much the other guys in the band actually played on this. They were grafted on here at the last minute. Although now when I think about it, it would kind of have been an odd time for Miles to decide to do a solo album in the first place. So I don't know. Maybe the record company said maybe, and then he started, and they're like, no, we got to call it April Wine. There's more brand power in calling it the band name. Hollywood is kind of a fun, naughty little song, play on words. You Won't Dance With Me. Okay, this was the big hit from the album and the only one that I've ever heard on the radio. This song dates all the way back to 1965. This song and Tonight Is a Wonderful Time to Fall in Love are apparently the first two songs Miles ever wrote. So those songs have been kicking around a long time. Now, it's important to note too, if people out there listening have only heard like the greatest hits, the version of You Won't Dance With Me that's on the greatest hits, and then they listen to this version, there's an extra verse on this version, and I can see why it doesn't get the radio play, because it's very much in that 60s, they sing, but Jill told Fred, you wish I'd drop dead. Yeah, and I remember the first time I heard this album, I'm like, whoa, I've never heard this part before. So that usually gets edited out when you hear it on the radio. But it's a 50s like doo-wop ballad. It's very well played, very well sung. And it's the reason that this album did go platinum in Canada. Then we have I'll hold this up. Oddly enough, the songs on this are actually in order. Some of them are broken up. They are actually in order. Come Away. That's another, there's no real hard, like I said, no real hard rock on here. Mama Lay is almost like the Santana type of, like, it's got a little Latin feel to it. I'd Rather Be Strong is interesting. It almost sings like a kind of a spiritual. It's not a cover. Hard Times is a cover. It's a Jimmy Dean cover, which is kind of fun. And then Marjorie ends the album off. It's not an album I reach for a lot. As a matter of fact, getting ready for this is the first time I dug the CD out in a long time. It's not the easiest one to find, but it does have some quality stuff on here. Like I said, I like Child's Garden the best. And the title song has some potential for a harder rock song there. And it's one it would be cool if they dug it up and started doing it live. Overall, though, I'm going to give this album, I'm not going to fail it. I'm going to give it a passing grade. I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10.
Cool. Excellent. I think that's more than fair. All right, Tim. Super. Thanks for that review. Awesome. John Clauser, we're going to pop it over to you. What's your thoughts on this?
Dude. Okay. So my thought with this one is, while yes, maybe not quite as fun as Whole World's Going Crazy, but it's kind of a fun listen to. It's definitely a CD for those who have ADD, if they just need a different style for every song or something. So you do get a little bit of everything. You get a little bit of country, you get a little old time rock and roll, you get some Caribbean flavor stuff, you get a little bit of gospel sounding, you get a little bit of hard rock, you get all kinds of little stuff. I think Forever For Now, when I started listening to the song and when it came on, I think, hey, wait a second, am I listening to Stars from Hearing Aid? Wait a second. But then it changes to a totally different rhythm. But Child's Garden certainly has that kind of a power ballad feel. I don't know. I almost wanted to say a little bit of maybe kind of what we would expect out of REO Speedwagon. I don't know, that for some reason that kind of got in my head a little bit there. Of course, Hollywood, you get to play on words. You Won't Dance With Me, definitely a 50s influence. Mama Lay with that Caribbean flavor. I'd Rather Be Strong definitely has a gospel soul feel to it. Hard Times, of course, every time I hear Hard Times, I always want to think Dusty Rhodes from WWE. Hot Times. Anyway, and then you have the closing song, Marjorie, and I think there's a lot of it's a good listen. I think if you treat it though, like Tim is saying, like maybe more of a Miles Goodwin solo album, you kind of maybe need to listen to it with some different ears. So I'm giving it at least a 6 out of 10. But probably like Tim, maybe not one I would reach for, but there's certain tracks I think I would definitely, if I was going to put a playlist together, there's a couple I think I would definitely put on. And I think Forever for Now would definitely be one of them. So
I'm just curious, John, if you looked at this as a Miles Goodwin solo album, do you think would you rate it more favorably than
I think
the
I need
Rape
to
or
get,
Wine
I think
album?
I think I would want to get a couple more listens
Mhm,
with that ear mindset
mhm.
and kind of take it from there and see how I would look at it from that perspective.
Right. Yeah. All right. Cool. Thank you much. Dave Lubin, let's pop it over to you.
So for me, this album, I think it's kind of an underrated album. And I'm listening to your guys' ratings, and basically you're supporting with my belief. I've always really liked this album simply because it is so versatile and it really shows him approaching different styles of music. I'm talking him being Miles Goodwin. He really hits on a whole bunch of genres here, and as the one thing I remember when I bought this record, and actually I'll just show the version I have here. This is something I picked up. I picked up this record, long after it was released. I got into the band later, and I started going backwards on these albums. Actually, it's kind of a cool album. You've got, it's got the classic, including all the lyrics on it. It's kind of cool. And actually, if you look, it's got some great shots of the band. So I think when all was said and done, the rest of the band played on it much more frequently or were much more involved than I think you guys are suggesting. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I really like this album a lot, and it was because of the versatility. And actually, versatility is one of the reasons I really like this band to begin with. You can't really define them, and I think in some ways that might have hurt them. But I think about a band like Boston, and basically to me, all their music always sounded the same, and that was the problem with them. The first album was like, hey, this is fantastic, and then that second album came out, and everybody kind of criticized Boston. This sounds like the first album, and then they released their third album years later, and it was like it was a time warp because it still sounded like the first two albums. These guys, it's like all these albums are different. You listen to Electric Jewels, it has a distinct sound. You listen to Stand Back, there's a distinct sound. Even between Harder, Faster, and Nature of the Beast, very, very different, distinct sounds. I always liked the band for that particular reason. So, this is one of those albums I would put on. I would like really enjoy every single song on the album, starting with the opener. The opener is like a nice, catchy, fun, middle of the road rocker. And again, all these albums to me have great opening songs. Actually, if I had to change something, Electric Jewels would have opened up with the title track, but that's beside the point. Child's Garden and Loving You. Actually, both those songs are actually attributed to his father. One thing that's become clear when we're doing these shows, I like my April Wine ballads, so probably another reason why I like this album, because it's filled with them. And I think these two are great ones. Hollywood, I talked about the April Wine Hall of Fame. This one probably would be just short. I think I can say this one and Babes in Arms from Harder, Faster, my two favorite deep tracks. I just really liked it. I really like those songs. And they're Hollywood I just really enjoyed the play on words. I remember, I heard this song for the first time when I was in high school, and I thought it was just so cool. Hey, Hollywood. You Won't Dance With Me. It's kind of an interesting thing with You Won't Dance With Me and Just Between You and Me. You Won't Dance With Me was the biggest hit they ever had in Canada. Just Between You and Me was the biggest hit they ever had in the United States. I like these songs, but I like my April Wine ballads, and frankly, I was would rank these two songs at the bottom of the list. They're just not as good as some of these other ones. So it's interesting to me that You Want Dance With Me became the top single on the album, because I think songs like Child's Garden, Loving You, Come Away, I think they're better songs for me. They're a better listen. Then I enjoy that whole change of pace in Mama Lay, the calypso. I'd Rather Be Strong, another change of pace, another different type of listening experience. And I think it was Tim mentioned other than You Won't Dance With Me, he doesn't hear these songs on the radio. Shoma in Montreal, at least well into the 80s, used to play Mama Lay and I'd Rather Be Strong from time to time. And it wasn't like a heavy rotation song by any means, but they definitely got some play from time to time. And then I enjoyed the little play of taking the Big Bad John song and turning it into Hard Times. And again, I found it a very amusing cover, what he did. So I enjoyed that much more as a novelty song than, let's say, The Whole World's Going Crazy. And then he finishes again the album very strong with Marjorie. So it doesn't have those two grand slams the way The Whole World does, but in turn it has that consistency that that Stand Back has. I think I'm going to go the highest of the whole group here. I'm giving it another 8.
Okay. Super, Dave. I appreciate that review. Look at you, an 8. All right. Let's pop it over to Nick Esquire. Nick, what's your thoughts on this one?
Grant, yeah, when I first heard this, I thought, did someone lose a bet? Was this a dare? Was this ego? Was it drugs? I had no idea. And my notes were this would be a phenomenal Miles Goodwin album. And if it was a Miles Goodwin, I would rate it a 9. And I didn't know that the germination of it was a Miles Goodwin album. Without saying my rank as an April Wine album yet, it reminds me of other albums where I felt that it was lesser than the sum of its parts. Like I could take each individual song and really like it. And I like every song on this album except for one. And I really like it. But together, it just seemed it's a little lower because it doesn't have that hard rocking crunch. It doesn't have some of those elements. But each individual song, I really like it. And we've talked about this album on the Contrarians, but I would compare it only because it's lesser than some of its parts, like Kiss Unmasked. I just think each individual song of that album is great. Put it together, and there's something together that just a little lacking. But be that as it may, just generally, it's a very 70s production. You've got stunted drums, stunted bass, even stunted guitars. But I felt that there were really, really cool guitar passages throughout this album. Piano throughout this album and keyboards are crushing. They're really good. Vocals are phenomenal. So there's a lot of really cool things on it. Background vocals are great. It's just that when you're expecting the April Wine, and we talked about The Whole World's Going Crazy with the drums and the bass and the crunching guitars, you're not going to get that here. Track by track, the title track, Forever for Now, within the first 5 or 6 seconds, you're like, well, something's not right here. I'm getting clean guitar. I'm waiting for crunchy guitar. But this is one of the rockers on the album, and I do like the song. I would have preferred it rocked up a bit, but I do like that song. I'm agreeing with the group. I think that Child's Garden, great song. The melody's awesome. Piano's crushing in it. There's some great guitar passages. So I'm with the group. It's a really neat. It's a great song. It's just I just like everything about it. Loving You, I really like. I am impressed that Tim cited Floyd Kramer. I thought I'd be the only Floyd Kramer fan on the East Coast.
Well, that mainly comes because I read Miles' autobiography, and he talks about how he never took piano lessons, but he could sit down and play any Floyd Kramer song.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And he's got such a unique style, and Floyd Kramer's played on everything. It's like Slipknot style. But I heard a gospel song in there. The background vocals and the melody, that's gospel. So I thought he was up there with the best of the 60s guys with it. I really like that song. I think it's a very strong song. And I'm hearing I just enjoy that song a lot. Hollywood, as someone who knew a Holly, the song resonated with me in several different ways, and I can attest to it. This is the weirdest song, and I understand how Dave likes it. I love the chorus. I love the heavy guitar, and I'm getting used to it. The verse it has, to me, I love shuffles. I'm not a shuffle hater like some people we know, but I found that the shuffle beat was almost lazy, like the remade version of Layla, which I found to be a very lazy shuffle. But I love the organ in that verse, so that song's growing on me. But I love the chorus. So Hollywood as a deep track is a really cool song, I guess, overall. You Want to Dance With Me. I felt that this song is still straddling the line almost to novelty. I love the 50s vibe. This is like holy Phil and Don Everly. It is really cool, but it's almost over the top. It's almost too much. And then I love that you cited that lyric because I couldn't believe that. Yeah, Jill told Fred, "You wished I was dead." I mean, it's really silly, but I do like the song. I love the 50s vibe. I love that. I wish artists would harken back to the 50s. It's in my wheelhouse. I just felt that this one and with the spoken words, it was like, are we getting almost into Dr. Demento territory here? But I understand why it would be a hit too. But I do like it. Come Away. My thought was, Tim, was this written for Burton Cummings? That song
it wasn't, he didn't write this song.
I know, but when I heard it, and his vocal delivery, and Miles has sounded like Burton on other songs. Not that that's a bad thing; it's a great thing. Being a Canadian legend and all, but I heard this song and I'm like, this sounds like a Burton Cummings track, or it could have been a Guess Who track. And Miles has done it on other songs. Matter of fact, the one that came to mind because I heard it today was Coming Right Down on Top of Me off of First Glance is Burton Cummings all over the place. And there's a song off of On Record that's a Burton Cummings like esque song, but I do like it. Catchy chorus, et cetera, et cetera. Mama Lay, I like that song. Again, you were describing it as Latin percussion. If you want to be silly with it, I instead of Mama Lay, I kept singing Mama Luke, which is an Italian word for goofball or dummy. But I like that song, and I try to figure out what does this sound like, or who's it sound like. I was thinking the closest I got was Al Stewart, but Santana's another.
Sounds like Santana to me.
It does actually. I really like I'd Rather Be Strong, my favorite songs on the album. Island Song makes you feel good. I think of the summer. Is it a yacht rock song? I don't know. Jimmy Buffett, although he's awful. I love the chorus. I love the background singers. They're fantastic. I want to have a drink with an umbrella in it, even though that's not usually not my typical fare. But I really like that song, and feel good song. You can't go wrong with that. Hard Times. I love Jimmy Dean. I love that. I love Big John. Maybe I like him so much. That's why I didn't like this. I didn't get it. Although I found some of the lyrics amusing. And I've, foretelling boys could be girls and girls could be boys, which obviously is a real thing in 2022. He name drops Kreskin, which is funny, but I was trying. The whole time I heard it, I'm like, why were you doing this? Why Big John? I was sitting there asking questions about it instead of enjoying the song. So that one for me, of all the tracks on the album, that one fell a little flat. I do like Marjorie. I found it ethereal, grows on you, kind of Beatles-esque chorus. This album grows on me. It has grown on me. I like it. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. I think that it's one of those albums, like I said, if it was I understand it now as a Miles solo album. I think it's really good. I do like the convergence of all these different styles. Typically, I wouldn't like something like that, but I did like it here. And I understand the criticism. It's not April Wine. I get it, but if I viewed it just song by song, track by track, I really enjoyed it. So
super. I totally agree with that whole thing. I think it's more of a collection of songs than it is an album. So if you piece it apart, it's stronger than it is as a cohesive unit. But I don't really look at this as an April Wine album, only an April Wine album in name, because it's definitely a Miles Goodwin record. And as a Miles Goodwin record, well, it's a lot of fun. I mean, yeah, it's a collection of songs. Is it an album? No. It's an April Wine album? Well, kind of. The most April Wine track I think on here would be Forever Now. In fact, the song almost reminds me of a Bowie song for some reason. I mean, I think the production on this whole record's great. I think what guitar that's on here is great guitar, and we'll talk about that here in a second. I think Steve Lang really might be playing bass on Forever Now because it certainly sounds like him. I think this thing could have been on FM rock radio. I mean, I don't think it ever did appear there, but I think this is probably one of my favorite tracks. Child's Garden, it almost went to Barry Manilow territory here, but it picks up and it gets out of that, thank God. But the orchestration's nice, tasteful guitar solo in it. Like I said, what guitar's on here is great. Loving You, another Miles ballad, slick and nicely recorded. You got that female backing vocal, which is fine for a Miles Goodwin solo album, but is this really April Wine? I'm going to say no. Hollywood, I really like. It's a good rocker. And you know what's funny? Maybe someone else could clear this up since we're talking about it. It almost sounds like it's an organ but I think it's a guitar being played through a Leslie cabinet.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Because when
Yeah.
it starts out, sounds very organ-like, but then later they're
Yeah.
all guitar riffs.
Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating. It'd probably be my second favorite track. I love that track. You Won't Dance With Me. It is pure shtick. It's a 1950s ballad. It is cheesy, but as we know, kids, cheese sells. And in 1977, with Happy Days On, I could see where this would be a hit. But you have to admit, it's very infectious. And once it gets into your head,
Oh, yeah.
it no wonder it was a big hit. No wonder it went platinum. It was of its time. So I have to, timing's everything on these records. It's almost cheesy in that Run Joey Run by David Geddes kind of way. If anyone knows Run Joey Run, that's
Yeah, I remember that one.
horrible. And I bought that 45 as a kid. The only other thing that bothers me on You Won't Dance With Me are this cheesy synths. It's just funny. It's just so cheesy, but like I said, cheese sells.
But who's buying?
It does right. It doesn't bother me. The other one I want to mention, Mama Leia, that's total Santana. And then I wrote on my notes, but is this April Wine? No, not at all, but it's got great guitar on it. I'll give it that.
Yeah.
I'd rather be strong. Caribbean total. Let's get the little umbrellas out and have yes, you're totally right. Hard Times. I don't like this song. It's just a rewrite of Big Bad John, but I don't want to hear Miles Goodwin doing Big Bad John. But, it's his solo album. He can do whatever he wants, but not on an April Wine album. Marjorie, another ballad, orchestration, elaborate production, vocals, nice closer to this album. But like I said, this is a Miles Goodwin solo album more than a group effort. If I look at it as a April Wine solo album, I think I'd probably give it, I don't know. I don't want to be too brutal, but I think I'd probably give it a 6. I mean, like Nick said, as you apart, they're great tracks, but together it's just kind of, I don't
Sometimes when you lay a bunch of those songs together, there's an effect that builds
Mhm.
that you don't get just listening to them individually. By the way, there's at least 4 songs from, I believe, from these sessions. Dave might know better than me, that eventually appeared on a compilation called The First Decade. So there's a song called It's a Pleasure to See You Again. There's
Mhm.
Baby It's You, Somebody Like You, and I think Am I in Love. They all come from the same, and I don't know, maybe the band played on every song. I'm just guessing that
Boy, it doesn't sound like it,
bag
but
of
maybe
some
they
songs
did.
were already done and then some they brought the band in. I really don't know, and the liner notes really don't say. So but yeah, I mean, Miles as a songwriter is all over the place stylistically, and maybe he needed to get this out of his system.
Yeah,
A lot
I
of
get
these
that.
songs appeared on the Rock Ballads album. Like
A
about 4 or
lot
5
appeared
of them.
on the Yes, which is another one that only came out in Canada. Yeah.
Dave,
Actually, there is another version of You Won't Dance With Me. So the Live at the El Macambo album, the original one did not have You Won't Dance With Me, but then they re-released it on CD with some bonus tracks. So I guess when they did that performance at the El Macambo, I guess they did do You Won't Dance With Me, and they did do it with when Jill told Fred she should drop dead. They did it with that verse, actually.
It's funny.
and that
That
makes
just sounds
sense.
like they stuck the studio version on there, but I need to listen to it again.
Somebody else suggested that too, and yeah, it's good. I assume they would have played it that night because the timing's correct, but
My version
Yeah,
has
maybe.
it, Dave. Mine has
your
it on
version,
it.
mine doesn't have it, so that I don't know what. Yeah, so maybe is that a U.S. release version?
I'm assuming it's on London and it's on side 2.
Oh.
It's 4 minutes, 7 seconds, and it's right before the closer, which the closer was You Could Have Been a Lady. And I want to say it's also on the Spotify version too.
Yeah,
matter of fact,
I've seen it on that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
So-
I have the Aquarius version that was released.
So
and it
I
doesn't
can
have that.
confirm, because the only London version of that I have right now, although I got a cassette coming in the mail, but I have the London 8-track of this, and it has You Won't Dance With Me on it. So
Okay.
there you go.
Well, Dave, you were showing off how beautiful your liner notes and stuff were for your vinyl. So for anybody who got a CD version, at least the one I picked up, yeah, this is
Yeah,
what you
no, it's
get.
yeah, that's the same
Yeah.
as mine, John. It's the generic Aquarius.
Very
Yeah, you got to
generic.
get the
It is-
original vinyl to get the full.
to get the
Fact.
full enchilada,
Yeah.
but
I mean, it does have this, right? But it doesn't
Yeah.
have those cool photos mixed in.
yes, yeah, you get this beautiful back, but boy, you don't
Yeah.
get much else.
Yeah, no, you get like this. Like I said, you get this whole thing here with all
Yeah, I
the
like
lyrics.
that.
And
Yeah.
and like most of these, it says 1993 on it. But anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, throw that up there again. Can you show me that shot of Steve Lang? Let's see if that's a precision base.
Let me see. Oh, here we are.
Looks it.
Yeah, that's a P base.
Looks
I
like it.
think, right?
It looks.
I don't know.
Yes,
That
yeah.
base sounds incredible. If that's what he's using.
And that's his usual stance too.
Here's another one.
Yeah, it's a P base.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It
But
might
he
have been.
gets one hell of a sound out of it.
Maybe
He
it's
plays
one of
like
those.
real close to the bridge.
Maybe it's one of those rare times. It's what he's putting through it. Maybe it's the amp instead
Yeah.
of the bass. So
Mm-hmm. He might be playing through a guitar amp for all we know. Well, kids, let's unveil what we our rating, our combined rating is a 6.7.
makes sense.
I mean, that sounds fair. I mean, I'd probably rate it higher as a Miles Goodwin solo album, but I can't since it's April Wine. So there you go, kids, a 6.7. I want to thank everybody for coming on tonight. I want to thank John Clauser, Nick Esquire, Tim Derling, and Dave Lubin. What we are going to look at next. See, originally we've already done the classic lineup albums. So we've already covered First Glance, Harder, Faster, Nature of the Beast, Power Play, Animal Grace, and Walking Through Fire. Those all can be had in a playlist. But what's next? We're going to jump all those. And like I said, we weren't going to we were just going to cover those, core albums, but we've expanded. So now we're going to look at Attitude and Frigate. Is it Frigate or Frigate?
Frigate.
I've always heard that it's frigate. Like, oh, frigate.
Yeah, Frigate.
Right.
And there's a frigate like a ship on the cover.
Yeah. So we're going to be looking at Attitude and Frigate. So that's going to be good. And that'll be next time. So like I said, I want to thank everybody for coming on. Please like, subscribe, you know how to do all that, and look forward to more content. So good night, everybody, and gentlemen, nice to have you.
Thanks.
Thank you.